how is your Overworld fantasy novel coming along?
It's coming along pretty well, and actually so is my other novel. I mentioned in the last Q&A that my creativity tends to be somewhat sporadic, so I tend to have a lot of creative projects going on at once. And this is certainly, you know, the case with my writing. I have like a couple little fan fiction projects that I, will go back to from time to time. Basically just whenever I get to a point in a writing project where I just don't have anything in my head and I can't come up with anything, I stop and I walk away from it and I start working on something else instead. And I've found that to be very conducive to not trying to force creativity, because I'm not good at forcing creativity. Like, it really has to just kind of come, and it's pretty much always, coming in one form or another. It's just that it doesn't always, happen for something that is, what I would like it to be. I would love to be able to maintain a laser focus on just one project for a really long period of time and just get it done, but that's just not really how my brain is wired. The other main novel project that I'm working on right now is this urban fantasy story about a girl who is a mechanic during her everyday sort of day job kind of life, and then during some parts of her life she gets into necromancy. Not in the sense that she is like raising the dead or anything, but just that she deals with the magic surrounding dead stuff. Like, the premise of this first novel is basically that this young man, his ghost shows up at her back doorstep and says, hey, I need help finding out who killed me. And that's basically the main thrust of this first story. Like, the book basically focuses almost entirely on ghosts. I have lots of different ideas about different types of undead that she could deal with over the course of like a longer series if I end up making like a series of novels out of it. But that's the one I'm doing writing for right now, because that's the book that I have, more in my head for. But basically when I stop having ideas for that one, I go back to Overworld, and then when I stop having ideas for Overworld, I go back to that, or I go back to a different writing project. It's just kind of how it works. But yeah, Overworld is going good. Going well. Damn it.
If you were to stop doing YouTube, would you just stop altogether, or make some kind of big last hurrah type storyline?
I would like to do a last hurrah type storyline. Ideally, that would be the way I would do it. And actually, the overall storyline in a big, grand sense of my YouTube channel is slowly building up to one particular thing, which is sort of like a big blowout type storyline. I don't know if I'll ever actually get there, because it's somewhat complicated, and it's way down the line if I ever do get to it. I think that would be a decent way to sort of retire from YouTube, if I were to ever, get as far as doing that storyline. But it's also possible that if I get there and, still want to keep doing YouTube after that point, then the storylines would just basically sort of calm down. I mean, like, all the characters would still be around and we would still interact from time to time, but there wouldn't be like a grand overarching plot in that sort of sense. But yeah, if I had my way, I would do a last hurrah type storyline. But, I don't see myself stopping YouTube anytime soon. I really like doing it. I don't always have as much time for it as I would like, but I really do like it.
What type of music do you like to listen to?
What type of music don't I like to listen to? Honestly, I say, previously that I'm not good at turning my brain off for stuff, but if there is one exception to that, and I really don't even consider it an exception, but the closest exception I have to that is music. This is because I don't have a strong background in musical education, so I don't really know enough about it to talk about it beyond, just whether I like it or not. I can analyze lyrics pretty well, because, that's just, like any kind of writing, basically. But in terms of, like, musical structure and things like that, I don't know one thing from another. That's, that's something that Matt knows. But there isn't really any type of music that I, really actively avoid. I'll give pretty much anything a shot. I will say that there are definitely certain genres of music that I prefer. I really like Irish and Scottish punk music. I enjoy ska. I have sort of a soft spot for like 90s pop music as well. I really like a lot of musicals, which is a genre of music, certainly. And I also really find musical mashups really, really fascinating. Like every so often I'll just go on YouTube and just, spend several hours just looking for interesting musical mashups. I really, really enjoy listening to that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, like, I would say that there are definitely genres that I listen to less. I don't listen to a lot of country. I don't listen to a lot of EDM. I listen to certain types of rap somewhat frequently, but there are also a number of different types of rap that I really don't go in for. Without wishing to be crude, the best way I could think of to describe it is the bling and bitches type rap. I don't like that type of rap. I'm not interested in it. It's not a type of music that I just don't really care for it. But I don't think there's such a thing as a bad genre of music. There are only genres of music that maybe have more bad than good in them, but I think you can find good examples of pretty much any genre of music if you look hard enough.
What was one thing that Matt did to make you realize he was such a good friend?
I'm not really a big believer in the concept of one big thing. I think that more valuable and true life experiences are typically built slowly over a grander period of time. And maybe that's just because of the way that I live my life. I live my life in a very sort of calm and steadily paced sort of way. I'm not terribly adventurous, and I don't really go out and do a whole lot of unusual things. Socially, I tend to stay pretty well in my comfort zone in terms of the types of experiences I have with my friends. And in that regard, there were just, there were a lot of little things that Matt did to make me realize he was such a good friend. I think that little things, very small and commonplace things add up to big important things over time. Big important things are built from those smaller things, which is why I think that our smallest everyday actions and our tiniest little acts of petty good or evil, for lack of a better term, have sort of a cumulative effect on just the world at large, and our personal worlds. Those of you who have read the Dresden Files will be somewhat familiar with this particular type of way of looking at the world. But again, to go back to Matt, it was lots of little things. But if I could talk about it as broadly as I possibly can, I always got the sense that I was never being actively judged when I hung out with Matt. He was always, very open, and he, was enthusiastic about, just talking about stuff and, listening to whatever input I had, and he really kind of, he took me as I was. I never got the sense that there was any sort of ulterior motives in the way that we interacted and the types of things that we did. I don't really feel like he ever tried to see me in any particular light other than the light in which I presented myself. He took me at face value, and I think that's a remarkably rare thing in a lot of people. Also, there's the fact that I think we're just kindred spirits in a lot of ways. We have a lot of similar interests. We are of a like mind on a great many things. We differ in the fine details of our opinions, but broadly speaking, a lot of our opinions on things tend to line up. And even though we go long stretches of time without being able to see one another, there's never really a feeling of distance when we do get to see each other. I mean, like, I can go 6 months without seeing Matt, and we interact and talk with one another as if we just saw each other yesterday. And I think that that's, an extraordinarily rare kind of bond to have with someone. I am not generally the sort of person to have a very large number of friends. I, tend to fall out of contact with people fairly easily. But, every so often I will, meet somebody who becomes sort of, a friend for life. Maybe not in the sense that we see each other all that frequently, or even that we get much of a chance to, you know, talk all that often, but in the sense that when you get together with that person, it's like the time and the distance never existed. And Matt is certainly one of those people to me.
What's the deal with the fish?
That fish? Oh boy, this might take a while. So, I don't know if any of you watching this are familiar with the humans versus zombies phenomenon, but for those of you who are not, it's this very popular game, or at least it, you know, was very popular, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know if it still is now, where basically, you know, on college campuses, people would, you know, carry around Nerf guns. You know, some people would be zombies and some people would be humans, and the zombies would try to turn humans into zombies. And there are varying levels of structure to it. At my campus, it was an actual student organization with, you know, like formally elected officers and, you know, rules and regulations and things like that, because basically the university, our university, wanted to shut humans versus zombies down, and the way that we stopped that from happening was becoming an actual student organization. So there was, you know, a great amount of organization and sort of bureaucracy in that regard, and there sort of had to be if we wanted to keep the game going. The organization was called BG Undead. For one semester, I was its unofficial videographer. We would do these like little videos as part of the missions, you know, like the big campus-wide missions that we would do 3 or 4 of once per semester. We would make these little like videos that kind of had like a sort of goofy little, you know, sort of parody-esque storyline to them. I was the unofficial videographer for one semester, and then I became the official videographer as well as the safety officer for a 2-semester period. And one of the things that the officers could do was create mini missions. These would just be very spur-of-the-moment type things that you would do for those people who could participate. You know, a lot of people would be in class, but some people would be free, and it was just a way to kind of increase camaraderie within the student organization itself, get, you know, people to know each other in smaller groups. And one of these mini missions, the storyline was taking place like on a submarine, and basically the premise of the mini mission was that the humans, like a small coalition of humans, was transporting some foodstuffs from A to B, right? And it being on a submarine, we figured that the foodstuffs, like, oh, what if it was fish? And so basically myself and like I think 3 or 4 other people, we all loaded up with stuff, and I got this giant stuffed fish. I can't remember where I got it from. I think it was a Bass Pro Shop, and I strapped the fish to my back and basically said, okay, we're going to be walking from this point A to this point B. Zombies, you know, come and try to get us, and if you are able to turn all of us, then we will give you guys a bunch of bags of Swedish fish. And also humans could come and protect us, and if the fish got from A to B untouched by the zombies, then the humans would get the Swedish fish. You know, it was like just a stupid, like, one-off little fun thing. But after that, I just had this stuffed fish just sitting around, you know, not really doing much of anything. I kept it in my apartment, and eventually it made its way back here, where it was stored under the bed. And I just kind of forgot about it for a couple of years. And then in some video or another, I think during VEDS, I was doing a video where I was cleaning out underneath my bed, and I found the fish. And I'm like, oh man, I remember this fish, I forgot about it. And I, on the recommendation of one of my subscribers, just decided to put it here and make it part of the background of my videos. So yeah, it's basically just a little piece of personal history. I don't know if that was a terribly interesting or entertaining story, but that's what the deal with the fish is. And those are some long answers for you. In some cases, some very long answers, but I hope that it was substantial and interesting, and I hope you guys liked the answers that I came up with for the questions. When next we answer questions, we will be doing it with all the members of the cast, which is always a fun time. So, until then, Code Monkeys and fellow VEDSies, I will see you tomorrow.